Hey guys, it's Emma, and I never close my closet doors. So before I start today's video, I'm gonna give you a quick life update. Obviously, I'm in a different room. You might recognize this room from years ago. It looks a lot different now. But I moved back home because I couldn't find a job where I was living, and I found a job here, and I'm now a preschool teacher, which is super cool and awesome, and I love it. So it's my first adult job, getting the big paychecks. So if you follow any of my other social media like Twitter or Instagram, you probably know that I am a Tourette Association of America Youth Ambassador Rising Leader. I announced it kind of recently. I've been so busy with moving, starting a new full-time job, and all that. So I didn't announce it as soon as I knew, but I announced it before the training. Basically, the best way to describe a rising leader for the Tourette Association of America is that we're like ambassadors for Tourette syndrome. And I'll read to you the benefits of the Youth Ambassador Rising Leader program. To network with people in the Tourette syndrome community, personal and professional development training, access to thought leaders, potential mentorship opportunities, partnership with the Tourette Association of America. That was good. An opportunity to give back to the Tourette syndrome community. Yeah. So it's like a really exciting opportunity, and last weekend I went to training in Orlando for it. So I'm gonna talk about that today. I was so nervous, so anxious. My anxiety disorder was off the charts when I showed up for the training. So since I have this new full-time job that I just told you about, I started kind of recently, and I couldn't get off work on the Friday that the training started. Well, the official training started on Saturday, but like the meet and greet and registration was on Friday. I had to drive from North Carolina to Orlando, Florida. So my boyfriend and I hopped into a car at 6 p.m., split up the drive, but it was still treacherous, and ended up in Orlando at 4 a.m. And near the end of the drive, he was driving, and I was getting so anxious about everything. There were all sorts of things going through my head, like, okay, are they not gonna let me do the training because I didn't show up for registration even though I emailed them? You know, I put the hotel room on one card, but I don't have that card, blah, 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 blah. Just all a bunch of random stuff, and I almost passed out in the car because I was so anxious. Like, I was literally like about to pass out. I started seeing stars. I just was getting totally out of hand, not using any coping mechanisms because it was so late in the night, and I didn't even think to, and I was just freaking out. Well, so we got there at 4 something, and I was probably awake until 6 because I just couldn't sleep. My mind would not stop. And then breakfast started at 7:30. So I showed up at 7:30. They were really, really good about everything about me not being able to show up the day before. They just like gave me my bag, and they're like, yeah, like, welcome to training, blah, blah, blah. I didn't eat anything for breakfast because I was so anxious. And I don't know if anyone noticed, like, throughout the day, if you're a rising leader and you're watching this, I was just anxious out of my mind. I feel like I didn't do a very good job of networking because I was so anxious, and also like being in a room full of people ticking. It was my first time I'd ever been around more than one person with Tourette syndrome, and it was making me anxious and making me tick more, and it was a whole thing. With that being said, it was just the most wonderful experience that I've ever had. So we had breakfast, I met some people, I sat at a table alone and waited for people to come to me because I just couldn't go to other people. Like I said, I was so bad at networking. And then the training started, and we had a full day of training. It was really awesome. We learned about networking, we learned about resilience, we learned about labeling, we learned about all sorts of things like surrounding Tourette syndrome, and it was really beneficial and just an awesome experience. And there was a panel discussion at the end of the day that I really enjoyed. It was just really cool to get people with Tourette syndrome's like perspectives on things. Throughout the day, I was just so anxious for a lot of different reasons. Even though I didn't really need to be anxious, I just was. Anxiety disorder happens. So my experience with people with Tourette syndrome before this big experience was either just online, or I knew 2 people in my life that have had Tourette syndrome in person, but they never told me they had Tourette syndrome. Their parents had talked to my parents and like asked my parents for advice and stuff. That's how I knew. So I never have had like an authentic experience with someone else with Tourette syndrome ever in my life until last weekend. I've never felt more able like more comfortable ticking in any environment. And there were multiple points in the day where I like almost started crying because I've never felt so like accepted in an environment. Like, I've just never felt more able to like tick without having to mask them, because I'm really good at masking my ticks. But I didn't have to do it that day, and it was such a, I'm not gonna say weird, I was about to say weird experience, but like weird in a good way experience, like a new thing that I was feeling. It was just a new feeling for me, because I've never really been somewhere where I felt like, oh, I'm allowed to tick without making it look like something else. Like, I've worked with a psychiatrist and been able to make certain ticks look like other things. It was just such an enriching experience and so like freeing. It was so freeing. Like, I want to do it. I want to do it every weekend. I don't know if I want to drive to Florida every weekend, but I want to be in that room full of people with Tourette syndrome every weekend. And yeah, I was ticking more, which is annoying, but like, it was totally worth it to be able to be in that room. But yeah, I'm gonna get emotional. I got a Rising Leaders packet that has like bios on all of the leaders, and I guess I want to show you mine. Here's mine. Under occupation it says not available because when I got accepted for the Rising Leaders program, I was looking for a job. I'll read you some of the stuff on my bio. I have Tourette syndrome, but Tourette syndrome does not have me. Typical. I have been able to allow it to be a large part of my identity without it consuming my identity. I was proud of that quote. I want to be a peer mentor to youth with Tourette syndrome because Tourette syndrome is an immense part of my life, and I want to show others that one can be a huge advocate for it and still lead a normal and very rewarding life. Tourette syndrome does not need to be a bad word. It is okay to talk about it, and I want to do everything in my power to reduce the stigma around it. I want Tourette syndrome to be understood as it truly is in a household setting, and not as something it is not. I feel like misconceptions about Tourette syndrome have run rampant through our society for years. I have been targeting each misconception and battling them. I wrote that. So yeah, I'm sure you guys know I'm very passionate about Tourette syndrome and just like battling the stigma, advocating for it and everything. And this Rising Leaders program is just helping me do that even further and giving me the right tools to do it. So it's really, really exciting to me. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. Overall, long story short, the Rising Leaders program is a wonderful program, and I just really enjoyed my experience. Even though I was super, super anxious like the entire day of training, I still feel like I got the most I could get out of it with my anxiety running rampant. I just really, really enjoyed my experience, and I am proud to be a Rising Leader. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks, Twitches. Bye!